What's up, guys? Welcome to the line change. On this video, we're going to talk about, or rather, we're going to talk a little bit about Brock Boeser, and we're going to kind of do a little bit of a reflection on, it's officially been 10 years since Brock Boeser was drafted by the Vancouver Canucks in the 2015 NHL Entry Draft. So this video, we're going to take a little look back at 10 years later, and we're going to ask and beg the question, how does Brock Boeser stack up to the rest of his draft class? How does he stack up and compare to those that were drafted in the same class as him? So we're going to go over an article on Canucks Army that goes into detail about that. We're also going to go and look through the 2015 draft and look through the order and see all who was drafted in 2015. But before I do that, I want to give a big shout out and thank you to my sponsor, Gassy Jack Art, maker of that incredible artwork you see there behind me. And you guys can get your hands on artwork of your own by checking them out at GassyJackArt.com. You can also find him on Instagram at GassyJackArt. He still has his end of season sale going on where you can buy 2 prints and get an additional 2 prints for free. So go ahead, check him out, GassyJackArt.com. So let's dive into this article on Canucks Army, and it's written by friend of the podcast, friend of the show, David Quadrelli. It's been just over 10 years since the Vancouver Canucks drafted Brock Boeser at 23rd overall of the 2015 NHL Entry Draft, with the club's most notable piece of business during free agency being re-signing Boeser to a contract that will likely see him finish out his career in Vancouver. We thought it'd be fitting to take a look at how Boeser stacks up to the rest of the 2015 draft class 10 years later. Now, keep in mind, this draft class was a stacked class. At the top of the class, and still there to this day, is Connor McDavid. There's no point in us wasting any more words talking about McDavid. He was projected to be a generational talent available at first overall of this draft, and that's exactly what the Edmonton Oilers got when they drafted him. Beyond McDavid, we see other star players such as Mitch Marner and Mikko Rantanen, both of whom just earned themselves some pretty big paydays for their ability to post 100-plus points, not to mention Jack Eichel, who went second overall in this draft to the Buffalo Sabres and has since established himself as a top-line center with the Vegas Golden Knights. Other notable names in this draft, Matthew Barzal, who went 16th overall to the New York Islanders, Kyle Connor, who went 17th overall to Winnipeg, fellow Canuck and teammate of Brock Boeser, now teammate of Brock Boeser, Jake DeBrusk, who went 14th overall to Boston. You had Thomas Chabot, who went 18th overall to Ottawa, Sebastian Aho, who went 35th overall to Carolina, Kirill Kaprizov, who went 135th to Minnesota, and again, another teammate of Brock Boeser, Connor Garland, went 123rd to Arizona. Let's now take a look at players taken ahead of Boeser with under 300 NHL games played. We hate to throw the bust, quote unquote, bust word around here, but the teams that drafted these players are almost certainly wishing they'd taken Boeser instead. Denis Gurianov, who went 12th overall to Dallas, Jacob Zaboral, who went 13th overall to Boston, Zachary Senyshyn, probably just butchered that, who went 15th overall to Boston. And then you have Evgeny Svechnikov, who went 19th overall to Detroit. Now let's take a look at how Boeser stacks up to the rest of his draft class. As we mentioned, this was a loaded class with many star players taken in it. Here are some numbers on how Boeser stacks up to the rest of his peers 10 years since they were drafted. With 434 points through 504 regular season games, Boeser ranks 10th in points behind McDavid, Marner, Rantanen, Aho, Eichel, Connor, Konechny, Barzal, and Timo Meier. With 204 regular season goals, Boeser has the 8th most goals of the 2015 draft class, sitting behind McDavid, Rantanen, Connor, Aho, Eichel, Marner, and Meier. Boeser also ranks 16th in regular season games played with 554. The Canucks couldn't have done much better than they did when they called Brock Boeser's name at 23rd overall. He's emerged as a talented goal scorer among an elite class of players, and as fans in Vancouver know, he has taken big strides in his game to become a complete player capable of logging top-line minutes. So let's take a look at the actual full-on list. In the draft class, we already mentioned the top three were McDavid, Eichel, and Strome. McDavid, of course, going to the Edmonton Oilers, Jack Eichel going to the Buffalo Sabres, and Dylan Strome being drafted by the Arizona Coyotes. Fourth was, of course, Mitch Marner. Fifth was Noah Hanifin. Sixth was Pavel Zacha. Then you had Ivan Provorov, who went 7th overall. Zach Werenski, who went 8th overall. Timo Meier, who went 9th overall. And then 10th overall was Mikko Rantanen. Then you have guys like Lawson Krause, Denis Gurianov, Jacob Zboril. And in this draft, the Boston Bruins had 3 straight first-round picks. They had 13th, 14th, and 15th overall, where they picked Zboril, DeBrusk, and Sanderson. And of course, one of those 2 names, or 3 names rather, still plays in the NHL. You had Zboril, who only played 4 seasons, 76 games played, 1 goal, 15 assists, 16 points. And then you had 4 seasons as well. Only played 16 games, 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points. So obviously, clearly those 2 were busts for the Boston Bruins. Then you had Matthew Barzal at 16, Kyle Connor at 17, Chabot at 18, Joel Eriksson-Ek went 20th overall for the Minnesota Wild. You have Ilya Samsonov, who went 22nd overall to the Washington Capitals. And of course, then you had Brock Boeser at 23rd. Konechny was right behind Boeser at 24th. Then you have Jack Roslovic, who was drafted 25th overall by the Winnipeg Jets. Another name that Canuck fans should be familiar with is Noah Jolson was taken 26th overall in the first round by the Montreal Canadiens. And you had Anthony Beauvillier drafted in the first round, 28th overall. Brandon Carlo was also a part of this draft class. Mackenzie Blackwood was a part of this draft class. Sebastian Aho, as we mentioned, was part of this draft class. Eric Chernak, Daniel Sprong was a member of this draft class. Rope Hintz was a member of this draft class at 49th overall. Jeremy Lozon, Rasmus Anderson was also in this draft class. Yakov Trenin, Vince Dunn, Jonas Siegenthaler. What was the Canucks' second? Oh, Canucks did not have a second-round pick in this draft. They did have a third-round pick, and it was Guillaume Brisebois that they selected in the third round in this draft. What else? Anthony Cirelli was drafted in the 2015 NHL draft, 72nd overall in the third round. Dan Vladar was also drafted here. Sam Montembeault, Aiden Hill. Who else? Christian Wolanin was also drafted in this, who's now a proud member of the Abbotsford Canucks, drafted 107th overall by the Ottawa Senators. Connor Garland, as we mentioned before. Ethan Bear was also drafted in 2015, 124th overall by the Edmonton Oilers. And of course, we mentioned Kirill Kaprizov going 135th overall. Of course, the Canucks, his 5th round pick in the one of their 5th round picks was Adam Gaudette, as well as Carl Neal, who ended up not even playing in the NHL. You had Vejmelka was also drafted in the 2015 draft by the Nashville Predators. Troy Terry of the Anaheim Ducks. Vladislav Gavrikov was also drafted by the Columbus Blue Jackets, 159th overall. You had Andrew Mangiapane, drafted by the Calgary Flames in the 6th round, 166th. Mason Appleton was also drafted by the Winnipeg Jets, 168th overall. We're now into the 7th round. Yeah, that's it for at least known names in the 2015 NHL Entry Draft. Oh, and players drafted per nation, 76 of them were Canadians, 54 of them were from the US, 20 players from Sweden, 18 players from Russia, 13 players from Finland, 12 players from Czechia, 5 players from Slovakia, 5 players from Switzerland, 3 players from Latvia, 1 player from Belarus, 1 player from China, 1 player from Germany, 1 player from Italy, and 1 player from the Netherlands. So that's this video talking about how does Brock Boeser stack up to the rest of his 2015 draft class, and a little, refresher of sorts for the 2015 NHL Entry Draft that took place 10 years ago. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think. And as always, if you guys like this video, be sure to hit that like button. And if you want to stay up to date on all your Vancouver Canucks content, be sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you don't miss a single video. You can find and interact with us on social media. You can find us on Facebook. Just search The Line Change to find our Facebook page. You can find us on Instagram at The Line Change. You can find us on X at Line Change Man. You can find us on TikTok at the TLC Podcast. And you can find us on Blue Sky at The Line Change. And feel free to give us a follow on all of our social media platforms. If you prefer an audio version of this podcast, you can find us on both Spotify and Apple Podcast. Once again, on Spotify, feel free to give us a follow as well as rate and review us. It is, of course, greatly appreciated. But that's going to do it for this video. Just a reminder, tomorrow, Tuesday, July 15th, I will be having the voice of the Abbotsford Canucks, Brandon Astle, appearing on the podcast at 3 p.m. We'll be going live. We'll be chatting about, obviously, the Abbotsford Canucks. We'll chat a little bit with Brandon about, how he became a play-by-play announcer. Obviously, we'll get into the whole Seelovs trade with him as well. That'll be a talking point for us. And we're just going to chat, talk hockey, talk about the Abbotsford Canucks, maybe a little bit of the Vancouver Canucks. So be sure to tune in Tuesday, July 15th at 3 p.m. Pacific. We'll be going live with Brandon Astle. You guys are not going to want to miss it. And as always, whose game is it? With everybody saying, go Canucks, go. Yeah.